Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barzy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, I have the very great pleasure of welcoming Chelsea Lebo out of Pennsylvania. Chelsea is a registered nurse. She's a certified nurse educator. Currently, she's teaching in BSN and ABSN programs. She's a certified healthcare simulation educator, advanced. So, welcome, Chelsea.
Thanks for having me.
My great pleasure. My great pleasure. But tell me, first of all, why are you a nurse? What brought you here?
What made me want to go into nursing? I always, like many people, liked caring, but my grandfather was in and out of the hospital for most of what I can remember, like my late childhood. So as soon
Mm,
as I could drive and get a job, I got a nursing assistant job at the hospital and on the floor that he frequently was in and out of. So I just was drawn to it. I loved helping. He was always a character when he was on the floor and I was working, and he was one of those fun old men with that would always make the nurses laugh. So
mhm.
he kind of just I was drawn to it, and it stuck. And then when I graduated nursing school, I also always loved teaching, and I was like, well, I really want to be a nurse. I don't want to go and just be a teacher. So as I graduated, I kind of just was like, I'm going to get involved and see how I can teach within nursing. So I was on committees and all that stuff, and it then led me to going back and getting my master's in education, and then I trickled into sim and education. So if you asked me back at, 18, would I be where I am now in sim? Absolutely not. I would have never guessed. I didn't even know it was a thing. Uh, but yeah, I would definitely say my grandfather, and then just once I was in the world, I just fell in love with it. And there were many people along the way that continued to inspire me to just
Mhm,
keep learning.
mhm, mhm. So you you had the experience of having someone who had, contact with the healthcare system,
Mhm.
which inspired that, which, piqued that interest. And then, you kind of like just stuck with it. But
Yep.
what challenged you?
Challenged. I think probably that fresh new grad. I was young. I was on the younger side. I graduated high school.
Yeah.
I went right into college and did a 2-year degree. So I was very, very young when I started. And
Hmm.
I think just, that initial gaining that respect from your colleagues and even your patients. They're like, "Are you old enough to drive? How are you taking care of
Yes.
me?" So you would get those comments, and that, of course, was challenging. And then as you get more mature, I think the other thing that was obviously very challenging, which people still struggle with, is that burnout. The patients, we had really high acuity. I cannot imagine working on the floor right now. I give the utmost respect to those nurses at the bedside because it's gotten even crazier since I've been at the bedside. And that was always challenging, that demands. So, figuring out what were those outlets for me, how could I come home and, not be burnt out. So I had to work to find those self-care things. And luckily I had my husband that was very supportive. I found I like to exercise and ride my bike and do puzzles and read and all that stuff. So just learning how to be self-aware. But those were probably my biggest two things. And I think just continuing, at least now, I always have like that imposter syndrome. Like I'm like, I should not be doing this right now, or wait, I'm not qualified still to do this. Like, how am I where I'm supposed to be? Or if you get invited to something, I'm like, are you sure you're asking me? So I still struggle with that. And I share that with my students and some of the ones that I continue to mentor as they, grow in their career. I think that's something that we continually, struggle with. But I love what
Yeah.
I do. So I just keep doing it.
Doing
And yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, that impossible. It's such a big fight, though.
It is.
And I don't know. I don't know how we can. I feel like we should be able to find a way to deal with it early.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You're doing massive things. Not for nothing, but we are doing massive things.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I get on the one hand that it seems like we're doing such big things that are bigger than us. But at the same time, you're doing it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing it and you come back and you do it tomorrow and you come back and do it the next day. So, but I get that. I really do get that. So you now specialize in simulation education. Um, what about it really grabs you?
Um, so I think for me, my biggest thing that I continue to love is I love that I get to be there when the students tend to have like those light bulb moments, and it's in such a safe space. And that is probably my favorite thing when you go through a simulation and at the end they're like, "Oh my gosh, like it clicked," or I get it, or I just came back from clinical and I had a patient that had the exact same presentation as sim and I knew exactly what to do because I had done it in the lab. So that I love. I love that type of mentoring. I'm very fortunate that I'm not in the position where I'm like grading the students. So a lot of my interactions are truly in that safe space.
Hmm.
I think it
Hmm.
changes your relationship and the ability to reach the students in a different way. And that I'm very fortunate for. And that's what keeps bringing me back to it because I just love the students. I love being able to experience that with them. And, a lot of them leave and they're like, oh, I kind of like this. I like that I like to teach and help others. And then it just, you go from there. So that's probably my favorite thing about the sim world. And also that sim educators like to share.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of unique to simulation. That might not always be. The philosophy in nursing education with some things, but in sim, like if you're like, I don't know how to do this, or has anyone done it this way, someone will share something with you, or they'll be like, you know what, no, but that's cool, and I want to figure it out with you. And I love that about my sim colleagues. It's such a fun niche world to be in, and people are doing really cool, innovative stuff, and I'm always inspired. Like I'm like, wow, like that's so cool, and it's just it's a neat world to be in.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And twice you mentioned that it was a safe space, and that is so huge.
Yeah,
That is so huge in that arena, because then, as you said, you can innovate, you can explore, 'cause there's nobody's life that's going to,
exactly.
you know, nobody's going to lose their life if you explore something within that space. So, that's really, really cool. What, if anything, though, do you think you'd like to see change about nursing education, nursing life? What do you think you'd like to see change?
I definitely think we need to continue the fight for better patient ratios. Absolutely. I just know, even hearing the stories from, my new grads when they are like, "Can I call you? I need to debrief about this." It's just, I think it's a really challenging place to be. Patients are really sick. Like people
Yes.
so much sicker than what they were 10, 15 years ago. It's just different. And I feel like we're just still slow to catch up with how to properly manage the patients. And part of that is that better ratio. More emphasis. I know I get the EMR, I get all the electronic stuff, but there's so much emphasis on that and checking those boxes so the hospital gets reimbursed and all that fun jazz. Totally get it. But we're
Mhm.
losing that, hands-on that
Mhm.
piece that really is the heart of nursing. So I hope that that could change. And then I think on the flip side, in the academic world, there's definitely needs to be still more work done on like incivility and just being able to support each other and raise each other up rather than it, not every setting is like that, but
Yeah.
I just think there's still actually in the hospital too, there's still issues with incivility and bullying and there's a lot there's a lot of opportunity there. I'm a firm believer in kindness and supporting each other, and sometimes that's just not what's happening. So I hope that maybe those areas could continue to people work upon and we see change hopefully soon.
Yeah, I am with you there. I am with you there. Sometimes it looks like a mountain that, I don't even know where to take the first step sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you know what? We can get it done. We can get it done. And I believe that we are the ones who are going to have to do it.
Yep.
We are the ones who are going to have to, just as you did just now, articulate that this needs to be done. This is what I see that needs to be done. And whether or not you get to do it, you start with putting it out there,
Yeah.
and somehow it'll get done. I believe that quite strongly. But what do you say? Would you say now? You started as a CNA
Mhm.
because your grandfather was ill. Here you are, you're a PhD student. And you've done so much. You're an educator, you've worked in many areas. What gives you the most satisfaction? What would you say would be your greatest achievement so far?
I think personally, my greatest achievement is just being able to continue my education while I have three young kids. People are always like, how are you doing it? I'm like, I really don't know how I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. I've always kind of had that mindset to continue to have small goals. So from even when I was young. So whatever that small goal is and working towards that. And then once you're there, okay, what's your next
What's
small
your
goal?
next one?
So
Hmm.
I've always functioned like that. I'm going to continue to have small goals. My husband's like, is there any more school? I'm like, no, technically, this is the terminal degree. So there's nothing else I can do as far as that. And he's like, thank goodness. There's always more certifications. There's always so much more to learn. So, what's that next step? What's that next personal goal? Because then you can continue to grow. And I feel like if you're always working on yourself and how you can grow as an individual and educate, continue to learn and educate, then that will make me in turn a better educator and role model for my students and my own, children. So I really that just I still can't believe I'm almost done. I'm very excited to be done.
I'm
My
sure.
students, yeah, but it's being in the role I am has always, it turned into such a great dream, and I can't believe I'm living it. I love teaching. I love my students. They make such an impact on me. That's something I tell them at the end of every year when they graduate. I'm like, you all say that we do so much for you, but you don't realize how much you guys
Yeah,
impact us. Like you all leave a little chip on my heart, depending on what type of
yeah,
relationship we've had. I learned so much from them, and they really push me to be my best self. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. What do you think? What I've seen recently, well, in the last 10 to 15 years, is that nursing has evolved. It has grown so much. When you look ahead, like another 10 years, what do you think it'll look like? What do you think you see?
I think, I think we're gonna see simulation specifically grow continuously in and outside the hospital. I think that's going to be a huge piece, which is great. I think we're going to see more technology being used. There's just so much coming out. And I think the positive side to that is we're going to be able to train, providers, students, everybody better because we're going to have so many opportunities to do that in safe spaces before it touches patients. So I think that'll be wonderful because I'm hoping then we'll see less med errors, we'll see less, poor patient outcomes. We're going to see a little bit more. I really think we're going to see that continue to expand, especially like in the technology space, which is I love that. That's my space I like. So I think, we're going to see more of that virtual reality, augmented reality, and some of that's
Mhm.
even with the patients. There's new studies coming out about like stroke patients and how they're using, virtual reality to heal and work different parts of their brain. It's so amazing and the amount of stuff you can do. So it's not just like the educating piece, it's even what we're seeing, how we're
Yeah,
patients. So I really think we're going to see a lot of that grow. And hopefully that will be to everyone's benefit. But I know it always takes a little bit of time for people to kind of feel comfortable with that technology and invest in it when it's new. So I
yeah.
think we're going to see a lot more of that as well.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and you just said it takes a little bit of time for people to catch up with the technology. It surely does. I remember very clearly when we started going from MARs to EMRs,
Yep.
right? From the
Mhm.
and the flip that caused was like, oh my God, possibly we cannot possibly do this. And now here we are thinking, well, who wants to go back to paper?
Yeah, I mean, I still try to show them how to paper document for
Yeah,
downtime. They're
yeah.
like,
But what?
great, but I mean, you do have to have a purpose, right? So I get
Yeah,
it. When you add new technology, it's like, okay, that's lovely, but um,
yeah,
what is that actual purpose? How do you tie it into patient care? How do you tie it into curriculum?
Exactly.
Use it because it's fun and cool.
Yeah.
Reason. So I think that also makes it challenging. But once people start to see, oh, this place has used it in this way, or they're using it in this way, I think it starts to get
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah. So what advice do you give to someone who wants to be a nurse, who said they wants to be a nurse?
would say absolutely do it. It's the most rewarding job in the world, no matter what area you end up being in, and you'll figure that out as we were talking before we hopped on here. There's so many opportunities. I always say too, it is a hard road. Like you're not going to get there and it's not going to be easy. No one ever says I want to redo nursing school. Doesn't ever come out of anyone's mouth. It is hard. But I think, knowing that up front, that you're going to work through emotionally, physically, all sorts of challenges, but that end reward is just something that sometimes is actually really hard to put into words, especially someone who is not involved in healthcare. I feel very blessed and fortunate to do what I do. And I think most nurses would also say that. And I always, with my students, I'm like, just because you try something and you're like, this is not for me, just know that there are so many different avenues, and different important roles that nurses have. So
Yeah.
you will find something, but it is definitely worth it, but it is a hard road to get there. But once you're there, it's just the opportunities are endless. So
Yeah. That is true. That is absolutely true. You've got to get past that hard road.
it is. It's tough. I always say I don't miss that. Like when they're coming to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have maternity exam." I was like, "Yeah, I did not miss maternity. I barely passed. I remember it." So I was like, "This is what we just got to figure out how to get by. Let go of the A and just you got to pass, get through. You can do it. And if you're not going to be an L&D nurse, you just got to get through the course."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to put a date somewhere on your calendar that says this is the date. This is the date I finish that pass.
Exactly. No,
If
absolutely.
you can just focus on that, you'll get to that. You'll get to the next step. Or at least that's how it had to work for me anyway. I
Yeah,
couldn't, otherwise I had to segment it.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I have another question. I've been asking this question for a while now, and I want to know if you could describe in one word what you think of as the most essential quality of a nurse, what would that word be?
There are many words, but I think actually for me, I would say integrity. I think,
Integrity.
um, being a nurse, that word reflects honesty, ethical
Hmm.
practice, even accountability, always doing the right thing, even when it's hard. And integrity builds the trust with your patients, families, healthcare teams. And that's something that starts as a student. And I know sometimes that's hard to get across, but I always tie things back. Like, would you want to know, your nurse had done a shortcut or
Yeah,
lied about something or cheated on exam? Is that who you would want, taking care of your
taking
loved
care of you.
one? And so I
Mhm.
think that really we are, the most trusted profession. And I expect, that is one standard that I expect. Like you got to be open and honest and integrity. And if you don't know something, also be able to say, I don't know this. I don't know everything. I have to look stuff up and ask for help. So also figuring out too with that piece, like how to ask questions and how to advocate for yourself when you don't know something. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Human.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And here's the thing, you're not supposed to know everything.
right.
You know, especially in a area that's growing so fast and exploding, and there is no way that you can know everything or that you even should.
Right.
Um, if you think you know everything, you're stagnant and you're not helping anybody later on.
Yeah. I mean, it's a team sport, right? Like
Yeah,
everybody needs a purpose and whatnot. So you just got to find what your role is in that. But integrity is huge. It's definitely something that I think as a nurse, like you have to have that integrity piece.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You talked about briefly, you talked about burnout earlier. What do you do to care for you?
Yeah, self-care. So I'm like everyone, I'm not good at it, right? I feel like we preach it, but we're as nurses, we usually aren't very good at it. But I do try to be mindful of just protecting my well-being, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, because then I can show up best I'll be my best self to show up and help others. So,
Yeah.
um, for me, it's a lot about balance. So I have like this routine. I get up at 5 a.m. I have my coffee. I get on my Peloton bike before anyone else is up. And that during the week, while I dread that alarm going off, I know that that just gives me that time to do what I need to do for me. So I've gotten into that practice so I can fit that into my day and start off on the foot. And that has really helped a lot. I also think setting boundaries, which again is so hard,
Hard.
so hard, but kind of learning what are those boundaries. And this applies to anyone in any setting.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when it's okay to say no. No is a sentence. It can be one, and that's okay. And I know personally that's something I always continue have to work on. I'm a tend to always say yes. I want to help everyone, but you have to figure out, when are those times, nope, I'm overloaded. I need to ask for help, or I just need to say, no, I can't do this right
Just needs, I can't. Yeah.
now. And that's
Yeah.
really hard. So
Yeah.
that's an opportunity I will forever have to work on. I know that for me. And then refueling too. I feel like, you're going to need downtime at some point in time. So just being mindful, how can you refuel? What does that look like for you? So whatever it is for you, or if you don't know, you got to figure it out, and make sure you make yourself a priority, which is really hard, especially if you have other, people have lots of life events.
Yeah.
Even, the young, some of these young college kids have dealt with more in their life than most adults will ever experience. So
That's
I'm always
right.
empathetic about that. So whatever it is that you need, but you do have to, try to figure it out, and sometimes that is a conversation with someone else to try to work through it, but you have to figure
Yeah.
out. Right?
Yeah. 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 And what I learned is, intentionality in that area. Because sometimes when you think of doing stuff for yourself, you always think of the big things. And sometimes it's not the big thing. Sometimes it's the thing that takes 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
of you being present with yourself,
Absolutely.
that, changes the whole picture. So, Chelsea, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks for
It
having
has it
me.
has been it has been lovely. I've loved talking to you. Thank you so very much for that.
No, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed my time, and if anybody ever is interested in sim, you can always reach out. I could talk about it for hours. So I
Well,
really
we can do it again, and you can just talk about
yeah.
some more. But really, I do mean that. Thank you very, very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.